have just concluded our presentation to the National Dialogue Committee. We have stressed on the centrality of resolving the cost of living. We, as Azimio coalition, the reason Kenyans and ourselves were on the street is because of the cost of living. And we've provided the committee with detailed analysis of what is wrong, what is the regime doing wrong, why isn't the cost of living coming down. And we have demonstrated that it is because the regime is mismanaging public finances. We have demonstrated is that because the regime is maintaining a very high deficit, which means they are borrowing very heavily in the domestic market. We have demonstrated that the so-called G2G transaction for fuel was a ruse and only resulted in an increase in the cost of living. We have presented to the committee the issues of electoral justice. Key among those issues is the audit of the presidential result, not really result, the presidential elections, because remember, you are auditing a whole process that arrives at whatever figures that were announced. We have demonstrated not only does the law require that the elections are evaluated and audited, we have demonstrated by figures taken from the IEBC portal itself, figures that demonstrate, for example, the Azimio candidate won in a majority of polling stations, being 24,000, nearly 499, vis-a-vis 21,000 for the opposing candidate. We have demonstrated that the Azimio candidate, using again the data in the IEBC portal, won in 803 electoral wards, vis-a-vis 648. We have demonstrated that the Azimio candidate won in 160 constituencies, including diaspora, vis-a-vis 131 for the KK presidential candidate. And you know, numbers usually have statistical coherence. It's not possible for one candidate to win in the majority of electoral wards, in the majority of constituencies, in the majority of polling stations, and be declared the loser. Correct. Statistically, it is not possible. We have therefore made the case for an immediate audit of the presidential elections as the basis for the reform, reconstitution, and restructuring of the IEBC. When we say restructuring, it's not just changing the commissioners, but relooking at the whole institution. We have made a presentation on the question of governance and the rule of law, particularly police brutality, demonstrated with video evidence and other evidence. The police brutality is on the increase. The violence that was visited on Kenyans when they were exercising their rights to demonstrate. We have further demonstrated how judiciary itself has come under attack, as well as the threats that have been made to individual judicial officers. We have spoken to the two-thirds gender rule and provided the committee with a reasoned account on how it can be achieved. We have presented to the committee on the question of fidelity to political parties, and Wakili Ndegwa is here, he'll make a comment on it. We have demonstrated how the regime has been attacking and cannibalizing and facilitating destruction of a political party in Jubilee, as well as other parties, as well as facilitating the theft of party resources that were held in various accounts. We have concluded our presentation by presenting our positions or restating our positions about constitutional change. Our positions have not moved from where they were in the BBI proposals. Those BBI proposals were canvassed across the Republic and passed by the majority of county assemblies, as well as Parliament. Therefore, it is not for us to demonstrate. It is rather for the KK regime to convince Kenyans that they are serious about the proposals they make. It is them who have taken a memorandum that requires constitutional change to Parliament, and we believe it is upon them to convince Kenyans they are serious. After all, they led the campaign against this particular Katiba. How can they be trusted if they are not implementing the current Katiba? How can they be entrusted to implement any changes that you might make thereof? We thank you. Wakili Ndegwa, please come.
Thank you very much, members of Azimio. Yeah, you have heard the submissions we have made this afternoon in respect to the respect of multi-party democracy. We are where we are because people fought for multi-party. There are individuals who are in the peripheries, who are against the multi-party democracy, who have never been involved in fight for multi-party or any reforms. The individuals, as Governor Derito has indicated, that opposed the constitution. And therefore you can see where we are coming from, and that justifies the reason why they are mutilating multi-party democracy in this country. We have made submissions to the extent that the reason why individuals had the appetite to manage Jubilee under the assistance of the state and most importantly the Registrar of Political Parties is not because they were desirous of managing Jubilee. Is because they were greedy of the resources that were held by Jubilee, that were managed by Jubilee, that were protected by Jubilee. And as I've indicated, to a tune of about 90 million, when we last got the information, is what has been embezzled. That money has not gone to the management of the party. The party is not responsible for it. It's individuals who are masquerading as the party leaders. We have also made submissions that you do not expect Parliament to function normally where you have the Speaker being an affiliated member of a coalition that is allegedly ruling. To that extent, the Speaker loses his objectivity, he loses his impartiality, and he makes Parliament an extension of the executive. And that is what is ailing democracy in this country. So we are calling upon the committee to put it into consideration that we see how Parliament will be managed in the future. Why? Because the executive has now fused Parliament and the executive. And you can see they amended the standing orders to allow members of the cabinet to appear in Parliament. Yet that is an unconstitutional amendment, and the Speaker, who is an extension of the executive, has allowed it to happen. So those are the issues that we are raising. We have also raised those issues of the audit of the election. Remember, the Election Act and the IBC Act requires the Commission to file a report on the election 6 months after the election to Parliament for purposes of audit. So what we are asking is not new. We are only saying, because the IBC is not there, the commissioners are not there, let us have audit done by an independent body, because audit of an election is a statutory requirement. Thank you.
Allow me to make a comment about political stability, especially because it has been made to look in there that political stability has a nexus on the fact that Azimio has been on the street. Now, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, which is the barometer of this economy, has been ranked worst performing globally. Now I want to tell you what is happening within the global fraternity. You cannot have a regime that wakes up one morning and collects all people with corruption cases and gives them to government, and you imagine that the world is not noticing and people will continue to give money to this economy. Number two, you cannot wake up any morning, a government issues a bill, Mwananchi says the bill is not conducive. You cannot raise taxes to us right now. You cannot raise taxes to the businesses, to the manufacturers. And the government goes ahead to turn that bill into an act because the parliament is already bought out. And you imagine that Kenya is going to be better performing. So what is happening to the Kenyan economy has been demonstrated with Kenya being ranked last. As long as we're going to have a regime that takes issues corruption lightly, as long as we're going to have a regime that overborrows, because what they have done is that they're borrowing, and every day, if you look at the bonds that they're issuing in the same stock market, every day the bond is more expensive. So banks are now not lending to mwananchi mdogo mdogo or those people that they used to call hustlers, now the banks are lending to government. So there is no way out apart from a proper restructuring of the economic policies for Kenya to be able to be where it is. I want Leshomo to come and speak on behalf of women. Leshomo, kuja uongee kwa Kiswahili. Because we have also issued a memorandum for women on the two-thirds gender rule, and I said it in English. I know she will be able to say it in...
Yangu ni Mheshimiwa Leshomo. Ile tumekuja kusikitia kabisa ni mambo top up ya kina mama. Mnajua tukiwa bunge memorandum tumelete, amendment tulilete na ikaangushwa mara 3 na wajumbe. Sasa leo hatuelewi hii gender rule itakuwa pande gani? Kwa sababu ikiletwa bunge inaangushwa na wanaume. Sasa hatuelewi leo ni sheria gani itatumika ndio gender rule itumike. Kwa sababu lazima itumike kwa sababu hiyo ni kitu iko kwa sheria. Ya pili, ningependa pia kusema kati ya pastor wanachukua maoni, ningependa kusema wapatie watu nafasi watoe maoni yao ile iko nayo. Kwa sababu ukiona Azimio ndio complainer. Sasa wale complainers wanaambia dakika 5. I wish wangepewa wamalize zile mambo zote wako nayo. Hiyo ndio kitu muhimu zaidi, lakini gender rule tunataka ipite kwa njia inatakikana. Amen.
Hata watu wa standard ngiri watu kwa na kushoto hapa chonga imekuwa ni wiki mbili zako next time nitavaa hivyo. Sijani hali ya maisha. Kuna hali ya maisha. Hakuna mtu anakuambia uvae suti. Imekuwa ni wiki mbili.